Okay, so this is going to be a regression practice problem. So here's a data set, and it comes from this site, data.world, and this is a Capital Bike Share 2011-2012. This is a data set of Capital Bike Share users on an hourly basis across Washington, D.C. And if we click this, explore this data set, we can see the data dictionary. So this tells you the variables. So there's date, season, hour, holiday, day of the week, working day, means is it a work day or a weekend, weather type, temperature, how the temperature feels, humidity, wind speed, casual user, registered user, total users. So how many casual users there were, registered users there were, and total users. So some of these variables presumably can help to predict the total users, the registered users, or the casual users. And some of these, and over here we have the data type. So the season is an integer, so presumably like 0, 1, 2, 3, or 1, 2, 3, 4 for the 4 seasons. And the hour is also an integer, so we're not talking about, 8:30. It's just 8 or 9. Okay, the holiday is a Boolean. Now, Boolean, we haven't really discussed it, but it means just like a yes, no, or a 0, 1, or some what's called a binary data value. In other words, just one of two values. So this is maybe yes, no. So is it a holiday? Yes or no. Day of the week is an integer, so maybe 1 is Sunday and 2 is Monday and so on. Working day is a yes or no. It's a Boolean. Weather type, let's see, what does it say? Show all column information. It doesn't say what weather type means, but it does give you some information here. But I don't know exactly what weather type refers to, but it's an integer. Temperature, so it's an integer means like 1 must stand for maybe sunny and 2 must stand for rainy and so on. Temperature is a decimal. Temperature feel is a decimal. Humidity is an integer. Wind speed is an integer, and so on. Okay, so these are the data values, and if you open it up, it looks like this. Well, let's make this a little bit easier to see. So you can see this data. Now, I would suggest not using this row of data, or I'm sorry, this column of data. So I might just delete it because we're not doing time series. Or you could leave it in there, but I think it's best just to delete it like that. Okay, so what you're supposed to do is use RapidMiner to do regression, linear regression, and use... Now, I'm not sure if in our video that we saw in class, she said linear regression means one variable, one input variable. But actually, usually the word simple linear regression means one input variable. Linear regression, you can have many variables. Well, I'm not sure. Actually, now I'm not quite sure. So anyway, regardless of what we call it, in Weka, you can use linear regression. You can use many variables. And also in RapidMiner, linear regression, you can use many input variables. So we're going to use that. So we're going to say linear regression means many input variables. So what I'd like you to do is 2 regression problems and do them both in Weka and in RapidMiner and compare the results. So hopefully Weka and RapidMiner will give you the same results if you use the same data. But let's see if that's true. And then also we want to do a single input variable versus all of these as input variables. So I want you to compare the results. So let's say for the single input variable, let's use the way the temperature feels to predict total users. Okay, so that's going to be the input, and this is going to be the output. So that you should do in just Weka. So for the single input and of course single output, but for the single input variable, just do this in Weka, and then for the entire data set, do it in Weka and do it in RapidMiner, and refer to the video where I talk about how to do it in RapidMiner. And in all cases, use this as the output variable, total users. However, don't use these two columns. I said use everything, but don't use these two columns, because these two columns, obviously, if you sum them up, give you this. So there's an obvious relationship between these two columns and this. And if you know that formula, you can predict this perfectly. So we don't want to use that information. So don't use these two columns in any of the data. So let's just delete these, in fact, like that. So we're going to use, you can use all of these to predict this, and in both Weka and RapidMiner, and then just use this to predict this, but just do that in Weka. Okay, and discuss any differences that you find. And for the Weka example, give the equation that Weka generates. So give the regression equation.